Do you ever wonder what kind of person would work with the dead? Today I sat down with Megan Callais to figure that out. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share it everywhere. Also, consider becoming a member to support the channel. Thanks a lot for watching. So what was it like the first time you touched a dead body?
I was really surprised because it was still very warm. I had this this idea in my mind that it was gonna be cold and clammy, but this person had just passed away, and it was like I was touching somebody that was asleep. It was very warm. It felt wrong. Yeah.
Was the skin still soft and everything?
Oh yeah, yeah. This person had maybe passed maybe an hour before. I was on the removal team, so when somebody passes away, part of the funeral home team that goes collects their body and brings them back to the mortuary. So they had called me. This old woman had passed away in her house, nice and cozy, and I was there within an hour. It was like someone was just asleep in front of me, and I was trying to move them. That was probably freakier to me than if she had been cold.
Because you felt like this was still a person that was just asleep and you were just taking them out of their home?
Exactly. It was easy in my mind to think, well, if they're cold, then, then they're dead. This is a decedent, but her being warm, I felt in that moment, I realized like, this is a person, this is her life. I'm in her bedroom, and it kind of hit me all at once.
So that was your first one. You got off pretty easy then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm sure, has there been varying degrees of decay?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've helped to transport a body of somebody that had passed away a few weeks prior. They were left alone in their house without AC on. And so it was not the consistency of a body. At that point, with those factors, the body breaks down. It's already a really advanced state of decomposition. And at that point, it's about trying to recover as much of the body as possible in the most respectful way possible.
What do you use to gather the body? Because it's probably, I'm assuming, mushy.
Yeah.
What are the tools you use to gather?
Gloves, patience. We still prepare a gurney, regardless of the state of the body, because every person deserves, respectful transportation, and that's on a gurney. And we do have like a plastic or protective layer that goes on the gurney just so that there's nothing transmitted, or passed between decedents. And yeah, it's a lot of getting as much as you can, and then anything that's left behind, like any residue, purge fluid, any sort of bodily fluid at all that may be left, that's usually left behind. We try and get as much as the body as possible. I've seen a few crime scenes of somebody that their cause of death was like an impact onto the ground, and at that point, it's kind of picking up what you see. Yeah.
Do you pick up, have you ever done like someone that got hit by a car on a road?
I have not been there to move the body of somebody that did. I have seen those crime scenes where somebody's hit by a car. I've also seen their body when it comes into, I worked at the coroner's office for a period of time, so I've seen the body when it goes in for examination, what it looks like afterwards. And then at the funeral home end and like a restoration point of view, I've witnessed that as well.
So are you just scooping it? Like, are they scooping it up with like a dustpan?
I have never used a dustpan. I've been fortunate enough that mostly using my hands was enough, and it feels a lot more personal that way too. Like they're being carried again. That always felt a little nicer to me. If at any point So like when we put someone on that plastic protective layer on the gurney, the next thing immediately is a blanket. Usually the body's wrapped in a blanket beforehand as well. So we try and make it as personal as possible, keep as much humility as possible. So yeah, we just do our best. Sometimes family is present when we do that as well. If there is family, so I have to, we have to be as respectful as possible.
Are you, when it's really bad, do you have to wear a respirator and a hazmat suit?
We definitely have like PPE, like full gear with it. I was doing this also during COVID as well, which that opens up a whole other can of worms. Working in a morgue during COVID was a lot. So there is full gown that we wear. Gloves are pretty standard in itself. I always wear long sleeves too underneath the PPE as like an additional protective layer because you don't know if someone you encounter has, any form of HIV or hepatitis or something crazy like Creutzfeldt-Jakob's, So you don't want to risk any sort of blood pathogen.
Yeah, that's pretty intense to think about. Have you puked?
I haven't. No, I've gotten close once, and it wasn't even the death of it. It was I think someone else puked. It was a living person's mess that they had seen a body, gotten sick, and that's what got me. But death has never really, the smell of death or seeing something like gnarly has never really made me feel sick.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I I hate to say that I'm comfortable with it because it's always something that pretty like shocking to think about, but it does come to a point when you've been doing this for a long time where you are desensitized from it. Where I'll walk through the care center, I'll walk into like a refrigeration and I'm like, okay, it's you see it every day, you smell it every day, you feel it every day. And that's my normal, that's my daily. So it doesn't bother me. And any time where I maybe have been like, ooh, like someone is maybe particularly decomposed, my first reaction isn't even disgust. It's kind of sadness for their body had to go through.
Were you always like that, or did that develop with the job?
I've always been a very empathetic person. Yeah, my spouse calls me a gummy bear because I am just a ball of emotions. That's really helped me when I started doing this. It helps me every single day. There's been times where I will cry with my families that I'm sitting down with. There's times where I'm talking on the phone, I'm trying my best to like hold it in and stay strong for them. And I hang up and I just start sobbing. Me and my coworkers will sob. I think part of what allows me to be so good at what I do is that I do feel things so strongly. But it's a double-edged sword because then I end up bringing it home with me. I've been doing this for 8 years and I still think about some of the things that I've seen, and it does stay with me, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to.
Yeah.
What a- what about the part where you aren't affected by death though? Was that something that you've had all your life, or did that develop with the job?
That I've always been really, really interested in death, in the macabre and spooky things. When I was little, it was a different story. I was scared. Could not even go down the aisle of Blockbuster for scary movies because it just terrified me so much. But it hit a point where that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to learn more. My mom was a forensic toxicologist, so she's always been really into that stuff too. So she raised me with a pretty healthy relationship towards it. And um, when I was definitely first around death, it was a little strange, but I did feel emotions. It was a lot of sadness, and the relationship with death has evolved into just something maybe more comfortable, maybe more comforting. I'm a very optimistic person as well. So I think as I've grown in this industry and my profession has grown, my relationship with death has gotten a lot more, yeah, a lot more comforting in a sort of way. It's not something to be scared of.
Yeah, I mean, we're all gonna end up there
It's the one thing guaranteed in life.
for sure.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're doing a great service, obviously, to the people. Um, what's a encounter with like a family member? What's the reaction when you come to take a loved one, especially when they're in a bad state?
Yeah. Um, it it can vary a lot. You usually get one of 3, like, emotions. I mean, it's a variety, but they can be categorized in one of 3, I think. The first is, of course, sadness. Naturally, that's what we typically expect. Um, Another is anger. I represent the worst thing in the world to some people. And so sometimes just introducing myself, I am immediately screamed at. I'm immediately argued with, conspiracies thrown at me, all these things. Um, and strangely enough, the third emotion I'm typically met with is usually humor. A lot of people will try and mask it. They'll come in, they'll meet with me, or I'm in your home. I'm here to prepare your loved one to come back with me to the morgue, and they're cracking jokes. They're telling me stories. They'll say, "Oh, I bet she's not going to complain too much." Things like that.
Wow.
And I don't know whether that comes from a genuine place or what people try and like force to get through it, but I will always match energy. Unless someone's screaming at me, I'm not going to scream at you back. I'll take it. I understand it's not personal. But for humor, I'm never going to tell someone you can't make that joke. I'll maybe crack a polite smile and just ensure them that, you know, your loved one's getting the best care that they can receive.
As you're saying that, I had a thought. Do you think, have you ever thought when you show up to grab someone, or not grab them, but
Yeah, I
take them
understand.
away, and someone's cracking jokes, do you think there might be foul play?
Um, I've never I've never thought that. There's been 1 or 2 times during, like, the arrangement process where we're signing paperwork where my brain goes, "That's weird. That's weird. Someone look into them." But in the home and when they're cracking jokes, that really is like a trauma response. And so I don't really think anything of it. Of course, if they say something like crazy, then there's gonna be other conversations that need to be had. But usually when I'm responding to somebody that passed away in their home or in a hospice facility, in a hospital, they passed away under sort of medical supervision of some sort, a nurse, a doctor. And so they're able to determine cause of death. So I wasn't really called in those cases where there could be any sort of foul play, but there has been a few times where I'm like, you're a little too happy that they're gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's more in the other end of it, not when you're
Yeah. Yeah, that's more in the other end. I've encountered a lot of people where you can tell they're like, just get it over with because they got their money. So it's, yeah, people can be pretty weird when someone passes away. Some people just think dollar signs. So, yeah.
So can you walk me through what, when you get a call to go to a scene,
Yeah.
to what happens from the call to the
Yeah.
morgue?
Sure. So, yeah. So someone is dead. Their heart stops. Couple different ways to go about this. If they pass away under medical supervision, whoever is medically supervising them, pronounce them deceased, calls the funeral home. Funeral home will come, arrive, introduce themselves to the family. Usually at that point, the medical people will dip. Their job's done. So then we arrive. It's usually pretty quick. It's a matter of getting some basic paperwork, asking some basic questions, preparing the loved one, putting them in our van, bringing them back to the mortuary. Depending on what time of day that takes place, the administration team will give the call to a family, express their condolences, and then set an appointment to meet with them to begin arrangements. From there, complete the arrangement process. That's where you determine cremation, burial, anatomical donation, whatever you can think of. And then from there, it's a matter of obtaining payment, permits, and scheduling all the details. Once everything's done, then preparations will begin. Embalming, dressing of the body, casketing of the body, cosmetizing, and then services. Now, if somebody passes away outside of medical supervision, the police need to be called. Even if it's a 150-year-old person that passes away in their home, if the doctor is not aware if they're passing, police need to be called. So then the coroners respond. The coroners will take a look around and see if an investigation needs to be done. They'll bring the body back to the coroner's office to complete the necessary exams, run toxicology, all that fun stuff. Sometimes they're able to determine, hey, this person's 150 years old. I see medication for heart problems for the last 50 years. It's safe to say there's no foul play, so they'll just call a funeral home and we'll come bring the body in.
So you get the call, you go there, you pick up the remains.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next step after you pick the remains up and you put? Do you
Yeah, for the
have
body.
a hearse or do you have a
So
van?
when we're transporting the decedent from the place of passing to the funeral home, we don't use a hearse. We'll just use a van. Could be like a Kia or something. So it's a van completely made to be blending in, to be a mundane vehicle. And the back is usually set up with like tracks for the gurneys to slide into that lock into place. So there's no movement during transport. They can usually hold 2 gurneys at once. Then we go back to the mortuary where we will complete the toe tag. If that's not done at the scene, then, we'll complete the toe tag, complete all the necessary paperwork, and prepare them for refrigeration.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a pretty intense job you got there to
Yeah.
do that. W- Let's take a break.
Okay.
What is your title exactly
Mhm.
in the profession that you have?
Okay. So my title is a funeral arranger, and I'm a social services supervisor. Not formally in my title, but I am a certified crematory technician as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the cremation.
Okay.
What's the process from getting the body to the end?
Yeah. So let's pick up back at that preparing for refrigeration. Okay.
Okay.
So decedents are typically, I like to say they're like bundled up, right? They're in blankets. They're in a protective plastic layer too that prevents any fluids to be leaking or anything like that. Sometimes they're already in a body bag from the medical examiner's office. If the family elects to do cremation, no other services, we call that a direct cremation. Okay, no viewing or anything like that. Once the funeral home gets the permit for cremation and everything's taken care of on like the paperwork end, it's a matter of scheduling the cremation. Average for funeral homes, it's usually scheduled within, I'd say about 7 business days, sometimes 7 to 10 business days. It's a matter of paperwork and stuff. But once it's scheduled, the body will be pulled just before cremation. It's usually 2 people doing that. There's a lot of paperwork to look over. You can only cremate somebody once, so you have to make sure you do it right, okay? That's a matter of checking the toe tag with the cremation permit issued to us by the state, making sure this is the correct person. There's an identification coin that's usually assigned to each decedent, and going through cremation, that coin number is assigned, kept with the paperwork throughout the whole process. If anybody has an urn, if you open up the urn, you'll see that little metal coin. It has the name of the crematory and an ID number that proves it's your loved one. The number one question I get is, how do I know this is my loved one? That's how we know. Okay. Sometimes we'll take a photograph of the deceased. We'll get fingerprints, locks of hair, things like that. If there's any items to be placed with the decedent, cards, photos, sentimental items. I've cremated a wedding dress with a woman before that didn't get to wear it. That one was very sad. I've cremated flowers with people. If someone's of a specific faith, like Buddhist, for example, there's a lot of items to be cremated with that person. They'll bring in sometimes bags full of funny money, fake money, clothing items, things that they think their loved one will need in the afterlife. It's really beautiful, and I love fulfilling requests like that. That makes my whole day. So once all of that is taken care of and noted, the retort cremation machine has already been preheating. It's a matter of selecting a temperature that's usually in accordance with the weight of the decedent. Crematories will schedule cremations in according to somebody's weight because if someone is of a much larger stature, they usually need a little bit more time to reduce to ashes during cremation. So we'll set the temperature of the retort. Once it's ready to go, we line up. Person is placed into a cremation container. This is different than an urn. It's a lot like a casket made for cremation, usually made out of like a dense cardboard. Okay. So at this point, the body has been placed into the cremation container. Looks like a big, long cardboard box. It is put right up against the retort doors. Hit a button, the doors open up. And then we see the light inside ignite. There's a flame in the back. Push the body in, and then close the doors. Closes down, and then it starts. Usually it's a double burner, one coming from the top, one coming from the front, and then you wait. Depending on what time the cremation started, you usually have to open up the doors about halfway through. We have like a long metal rake, and it's just to move the remains around a little bit in there to ensure it's an even burn. You don't want there to be any sort of burning, like, I don't want to say charring, but you want to make sure that the ashes are being evenly reduced. Okay, the remains are being evenly burned. And then once the cremation process is done, the door comes up, everything inside needs to cool down. And then it's a matter of bringing the remains out of the retort. Then they go into this big metal bin with the ID tag, all the cremation paperwork. Cremation usually takes anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, can vary based on the size of the person as well. And then those ashes, those remains, are usually big chunks of bone. Okay. A lot of people think that they reduce down to ashes during that one process, but it doesn't. They need to be processed. Okay, it goes into this big machine that reduces it down to a fine ash. There'll still be some, bone pieces in there that you can see, but it breaks it down significantly. If we did not process them, you would essentially have a bag of jagged, broken, fragile bones. Yeah. Yeah.
Do bodies have to be embalmed before they get cremated?
No. And actually, that's a huge law that every funeral home needs to follow, and that is embalming is never required. A funeral home can say we need embalming in order to do this service, like a big viewing for 2 hours, for example. But for cremation, no. It's actually a lot cheaper if you do not embalm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it seems a lot safer for the environment as well.
Yeah. That's a big thing. You can cremate somebody that's been embalmed, but really it's only required, or we only do it if the family requests it. Sometimes even if they're not going to see the body, they'd like to know that they're embalmed. Or if we're going to be traveling with the body, families will elect to do embalming as well.
What about like pacemakers and artificial joints and stuff? Does that come out in the cremation process, or is that taken out during the autopsy?
So we actually categorize those as two different things.
Okay.
So what we say, if there's anything battery operated in the body, pacemaker, sometimes people have like nerve stimulators, those have to be taken out. Anything with a battery will explode during cremation. So we take it out. There's usually like a magnetic wand that will wave over if the family's unsure of anything. And if there's a pacemaker, we just make an incision and take it out. Those can usually be recycled, disposed of. Sometimes if the family requests it, we can return the pacemaker back to the manufacturer. Now, any like medical metal, any joint replacements, those are recycled afterwards.
So did I get that right? You're making incisions into the body to pull things out?
I personally am not.
Yeah. Okay.
But our team is. Our
I
team
get
is.
it.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
care center people. Sometimes it's our embalmer that does it. Sometimes it's just we have people that are trained in not fully embalming. Maybe they're going through the embalming program, or they are mortuary specialists where they can just go in and remove the pacemaker.
Yeah.
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 It would seem like
go
you would
ahead.
have to go digging if you Right. Sure.
You pretty much know where it is.
Yeah.
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 True. Maybe I would have. I hope I never have to. I
Yeah.
never want to. But yeah. Maybe I was speaking for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um. So so it's reduced. The body's reduced to ashes, but
Mhm.
there's still chunks of bone then,
Yeah.
and that has to go through just like a rock smasher, essentially.
So anything when it's mostly reduced down to ash, it's really small pieces of bone. It's bone fragments. If anybody has opened up an urn that they've ever received, I know some people don't want to do that, but if you're ever curious on what it looks a lot like beach sand. How, if you scoop up beach sand in your hand, sometimes you have pieces of shells, you have little things like that. That's what the bones look like. They're not big enough to tell maybe which bone it's from unless you're really, really good at identifying bones. But yeah, I will say there has been one request from a family to not process certain bones. And this is one of my favorite things that I did not know about.
Okay.
Green bones.
What are green bones?
Yes. So I served a family. Their family is of Asian descent. They're from China. And they had asked me, they said, hey, if after cremation you see that grandpa had any green or like teal bones, hold on to them. And I was like, hold on. Tell me more about that. Because I hear requests all the time. Sometimes they're strange and I can't do them based on laws, but I'd never heard this before. And they said that in our culture and our beliefs, if you were a really good person in your life, if you helped other people, you made a difference in the world, you have green bones. And it just means that, you're a good person. And so I was like, I'd never even heard of that before. I've been doing this for how many years? Sure enough, do his cremation, pull the bones out of the retort. There is a teal bone in his body. It is like almost like a bright, it's a bright teal. It's not even like a muted color. It's impossible to miss. And at first I was like, someone has got to be messing with me. No. The science behind it, it's some sort of oxidation that happens to the bones during cremation. This perfect combination of the heat, the air, the density of the bone. But I'm standing there and I'm thinking, wow, he was such a great man in his life that he's got green bones. And so sure enough, I got approval from our crematory manager. I got approval from my, funeral home manager. We kept a very small piece of his bone for the family. And when I called them up to say it's time for you to come and receive your loved one's ashes, and they asked, I got to say yes. I have his green bone.
Have you seen that since?
No. Yeah, isn't that insane?
Yeah, I would think someone's messing with me.
But it's one of those things, and I get asked this a lot because I deal with so many different faiths and cultures. Okay, anything you can think of, right? And it's what I personally believe. I believe whatever you believe. And I'm not just saying that. I believe if I'm sitting down with a Jewish family, the afterlife that you believe will happen for your loved one. They're going exactly where they need to go. If I'm sitting down with a Buddhist family, yes, I believe everything we cremate with your loved one is going with them. If I'm sitting down with an atheist family, yeah, your loved one's body's at rest. That's it. And so when I met with that family and they told me, I believe his bones will be green, I believe that happened because he believed that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're saying that, well, I'll just ask you because I don't want to
Sure.
speak for you. So are you a religious person then?
I personally don't belong to a faith. I appreciate a lot in a lot of different religions. I have spent a lot of time with the Jewish faith. There's a Jewish funeral home here in town that I was very close with. Spent a lot of time with priests. I have so many priests' phone numbers in my phone. It's like ridiculous. I don't personally belong to a faith, but I think that allows me to really connect more with so many families of faiths because it's like, teach me everything. And I just want to know how to honor your loved ones so that they can receive, their eternal peace that they're looking for, whatever that may look like.
So you think that, let me think of how to say this. You think that whatever they believe is true.
Yeah.
So, you might be this, that, the other. And if you wholeheartedly believe that that's going to happen for you, that's
Yeah. I think what you put your energy and your time and your love into is your reality. And so I think that, when I sit down with families and they're telling me, you know, his soul went to heaven. He's in heaven with God and our creator. And I say yes, and I'm crying with you, and they're asking me, is he in heaven? I'll say yes, because that's true. That's true for you. He is in heaven. That's where he wanted to go. You know, if I sit down with somebody and they say, now don't mention any of that, God stuff to me, I don't want that, then I'm like, okay, no problem. Then your loved one's going to receive the best care possible. That's it. So I believe in everything.
is that that say you die.
Hmm.
What would you tell your significant other
Hmm.
or whoever's in charge of your remains? What would you tell them to tell the funeral director then?
So I actually have a list on my phone planned out, and it's titled "When I Die." Okay, and it really is up to whoever my next of kin is. I don't know what the future holds. Okay, I don't. Just in terms of when I'll pass away, the circumstances, who's left behind. But all that I ask is that they make the best choice for themselves, and that I have a sick headstone.
So no cremation for you.
I mean, you can still bury cremated remains.
Oh, okay.
It's really it just depends. In a perfect world, I would, and I said this in there as well. In a perfect world, I would love a really beautiful, ornate Victorian coffin. I would love a mausoleum as well for my family to be interred with me, whether it's ashes or body. But I also understand I don't know what the circumstances are going to be when I pass. I mean, being in social services as well. So what that is, it's when someone passes away, their family does not have money to care for them, or it's someone passes away and there is no family to care for them. So any John or Jane Does, any people left behind with no known family, I care for them. And I have seen this enough where people are just put in unfortunate circumstances due to whatever reason, where they can't pay for the services that they want. So I would hate to tell, like if it's my children, for example, I would hate to tell my children, bury me, put my body in a casket and bury me. And for some reason, their financial circumstances cannot pay for that. I don't want them to feel that guilt. I have talked to so many people who are sobbing to me because they're saying, all mom wanted was to be buried, and I can't give her that. And that breaks my heart. So I don't want to put my next of kin in that position. Do whatever you can. Just get me a cool headstone, and we'll take it from there.
So let's touch on the social service.
Yeah.
What do you do? You briefly talked about it, but
Mhm.
let's go back and let's talk
Yeah.
about what that is exactly that you
Yeah.
do.
So doing social services is a very unique role, and not every funeral home offers it. I know a lot of people, and I've heard this my entire career, funeral homes are vultures, okay? They just want all your money. And to an extent, we've all heard those crazy stories. That is true. There are some funeral homes, there are some people just care about a paycheck. I am not one of those people. So when I had an opportunity to work in a social services role, I took it. The funeral home that I work for is contracted with the county, their social service program. So essentially, my role is as like a funeral home representative, liaison between the family and the county to receive whatever assistance they may need. Now, what that means in terms of like the actual arrangement part of it, it sometimes quadruples the time frame for cremation, which is really challenging. I mentioned that cremations can sometimes happen within like 10 business days. With social services, you're looking at closer to 8 weeks, sometimes longer. But this is a program for people that truly need it. So I sit down with people who are experiencing homelessness. I'm sitting down with people who have, not only lost their favorite person, but maybe their loved ones' disability checks were paying for their apartment. Now, if they passed away, they're not only accepting death, but they are accepting losing their home. It's very challenging and it is very emotional. And not everybody in like my title or like in the funeral home can do this job. Unfortunately, I have worked with some people that don't have the patience or the empathy to be able to do it because all maybe they think is, who cares what they think, but there's a lot of patience that goes into it. Yeah.
And that ties into the funeral arranger
Yeah.
position.
So I sit down, it's like a standard arrangement, okay, where I sit down, I gather all the details about the person that passed away. We build the death certificate. That's the funeral home's job. And then from there, we'll sign cremation papers, go through all the laws and policies and things. And I usually gather proof of relationship. So marriage certificate, birth certificates, things like that, how they're related to their loved one. And I submit it to the county. The county will go through their interview process, determine eligibility, and at an unknown amount of time, they will approve the cremation and pay for it entirely, which is a massive relief for families. A massive relief. Cremations, you're usually looking around $2,000. Even the cheapest ones here in town, I don't think you're going to find a quality place for, less than $900. And most people don't just have that out, people pass away unexpectedly. That's a lot to put into. And that's just the cremation part. That's not taking care of, God forbid you have to go through probate. You have to take care of all these different things. So even $900 is a lot for people. So social services is a huge relief. But some circumstances where there's no family, so someone passes away, maybe there were, an unhoused person with no contacts or anything. Maybe it was somebody that just didn't have any family to leave behind. Sometimes a neighbor will reach out to me, just say, hey, I know my friend's in your care. There's no family. Is there anything I can do? And I'll explain, you can either pay for it yourself if you're feeling so kind, or I can help you go through social services. But usually that takes a court order, which can delay cremation sometimes upwards of a year. So we keep someone in our care for months until the county agrees to pay it.
What makes a good cremation center versus a bad one?
It's how people treat the living. Of course, treatment of the dead are huge and paramount, but let's assume that everybody's following all the proper laws and policies and regulations, I do think it's how people treat the living. I have been around long enough to see a lot of funeral homes in town get shut down. I've heard of quite a few places like not honoring contracts that maybe had been written in the past. So there's things called pre-needs or pre-planning, where if you wake up and you just want to make sure that your own cremation is taken care of or your own burial, you can set all that up in advance. You pay today's prices, so even if you die 50 years from now, it's taken care of. You take that burden away from your next of kin. And I've heard of some funeral homes saying, no, you never did that. You never paid us thousands of dollars. And the families are like, we've been paying you for years, So aside from horrific care of decedents that we all hear those horror stories, it's how they treat the living. Without patience, without empathy, you're just another person walking in. This is another day for me. That to me says, if you're talking to the living like that, I don't want you anywhere near the dead.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you can't talk back when you got a toe tag on, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, people don't even realize the laws are so strict that it's actually against the law to curse in front of a decedent as well. To say a cuss word in
No
front
shit.
of yes. Yeah. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. So that's one thing, It is a lot. Yeah, I'm a really big believer. I love a lot of the history behind the death industry and all of it. And ancient Egypt is a big one, of course. And in order to work with the people that passed away in ancient Egypt, you were considered like you were considered of a very holy person, of a very trusted person to do that. And so I still carry that with me. I think of myself not as like a holy person, oh my God, but as like, I take that level of responsibility with me of like, this is a very, very, very important job to do that not just anybody can do. And I carry that as like a badge of honor, if that makes sense.
It does, because it's a lot of people don't like to talk about this,
Yeah.
and they don't. Nobody wants to accept that they're going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody that. I mean, maybe somebody wanting to commit suicide, but I'm sure they change their mind as they're doing it. Most of the time, hopefully. But yeah, I see what you're saying, where it is a great responsibility, and you know, how do you view the body when? Do you view it as a vessel, or is the spirits left, or how do you view a deceased body? Like when you go to a scene and you're going to pick it up, like what's the
Yeah.
your mind at?
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of view them as if they're still not as like a living person, but they're still whole to me. I've gone on quite a few removals where, like one, for example, that I think about very fondly was this great grandmother that had passed away, and the whole family was in the house there, which can always be a little daunting for me and my team because you don't know what you're walking into. And so we arrived and we go into her room, and you could tell by her belongings that she was a diva. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She had her nails done, her hair was done. Everything in her room was just like classy lady. And I knew immediately, I'm like, this woman, she commanded a presence. You can kind of get her personality. And the daughter wanted to stay there throughout the whole time, which we typically will try and suggest against seeing that part, because it's not the best parting memory. You know, if you already said goodbye to your loved one and they're in bed, you don't want to see what we are going to do. Not that it's anything wrong, but even something as simple as pulling the blanket up over their face makes it very real for a family, and they might not want to see that. And she wanted to stay. And I was like, no problem, you know? And so I'm standing there, and we're writing up the toe tag, and her toenails are like the cutest little art on them. She had her nails like freshly done. And so I commented, I said, her nails look really cute. And the daughter just had a big smile break out on her face. And she was like, she insisted on having them done every couple of weeks. Regardless of what state she was in, she needed her nails done. And I was like, I love that. You know, thank you for sharing that with me. And I will do that. If somebody asks me, you know, hey, will you go in and will you tell my loved one that I miss them? I will. Immediately. As soon as I'm done. As soon as they leave, you know, I wish them to take care. I will go back to our care center and I will find them in refrigeration, and I will say, your loved one said they miss you so much. They cannot wait to see you again. You know, I believe in that. There are some religions like Judaism, for example, where they believe the spirit stays with the body. And so I believe that. If I have a Jewish decedent in my care, I'm talking to them. Hey, you know, I'll say their name. I'll say I talked to your family today. They miss you a lot, and they can't wait to, you know, to know that you're at rest. They're people, you know.
Do they move after they've passed away, like while you're transporting them or anything?
I've never encountered that. I've heard some like postmortem farts, you know, just gas being released from the body, things like that. Sometimes there'll be like a groan of just any air leaving the chest. Sometimes it's like a gargling sound. Definitely some farts. Those are especially potent.
Yeah.
But nothing, you know, people always say, oh, you know, my uncle's cousin's brother's dad was a mortician and he saw a body sit up. I've been
Yeah.
doing this 8 years. I have not seen that. I've
Nobody,
never heard of anybody seeing that either.
nobody's ever, like, you guys haven't been like at the home and, hey, There's one that sat up today. Nothing like that.
Nothing like that. And you know what? If that was something that was happening, we would have to take that into account because the refrigeration is usually set up like, I like to think of it as like bunk beds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they were sitting up, they would need more space to sit up in the cooler, or everyone would have a bruise on their
Yeah,
forehead
they'd be
because they'd
hitting their
hit the
heads.
metal. It doesn't, I've never seen that. I've never heard of that. I've worked at multiple funeral homes. I've never heard that before. So I think people are just saying things. Now, there are like little nerve twitchings that will happen, or like I've heard during embalming, but there's fluid moving through your body. So
Mm-hmm.
your muscles and everything, that's changing. So sometimes there'll be, little twitches here and there, or sometimes like the lids, like, if somebody's in rigor mortis, right, which is that stage of death where all the muscles in the body stiffen. That usually happens within about 12 hours of someone passing. It can vary depending on condition of body mass, a bunch of things. But rigor mortis, sometimes like if your hands are stuck in a specific way, once rigor lets go, your hands will still be there and then it'll kind of relax from that, so the body will look like it's moving. But, Aunt Betty's sitting up, that doesn't happen.
Thankfully.
Yeah, I know, right? Ooh, that would be scary. Could you imagine that happening during a funeral? Oh, I know.
At any time, it'd be
Yeah.
it'd be pretty scary. Yeah, thankfully.
Mhm.
I mean, nobody wants anybody to die, but yeah, that would. Have you experienced any kind of paranormal or ghosts or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, tell me.
I do believe in the paranormal. So that is something that I can mark down on my beliefs. I have heard quite a bit. So actually, that same story of the lady with the toenail polish,
Okay.
we were walking out of her room, very, very, very like sullen moment, right? Me and my teammate, we are walking with the gurney, walking through the house. The whole family's lined up, saying goodbye to her. Okay, she's got a blanket over her. As we're walking out, and I'm still pretty new at this point, the gurney bumps into the bookshelf. Oh, this knick-knack on the top of the bookshelf it's a red cardinal. It falls, hits the ground. It does not break, thank God, but it hits the ground. I'm mortified. Immediately apologizing. I'm so sorry. I pick it up and I hand it to them, and the daughter goes, "This is Mom saying goodbye. This is her favorite bird. She loved cardinals. So of course one had to fall on the way out." So little things like that will happen. A lot more intense for what you're looking for here. I've had families come in and say, "Can I show you something weird?" And I say, "Yes." Yeah, absolutely. And they pull up like the camera in their living room. Maybe it's just like in the corner of the room looking down. And they say, "Do you see that? We took this screenshot last night." They show me the timestamp, the date, right? Maybe their loved one passed a week prior. They say, "That's my mom standing in the middle of the room." Oh, chills. Yeah, they literally showed me a picture, time-stamped for the night before, with their loved one standing in the middle of the room. She showed up on camera.
Is it like the ring cam footage of like UFOs and stuff where it's blurry, or is it
No,
actual?
it was clear. It looked like, if you told me that she had a twin sister standing up in the middle of the room, I would believe it.
And
I
what
would believe it.
age is it the deceased age, or is she younger? Or
It's like as she passed away. So she's old. It looks
Okay.
like as if she just didn't pass away. She's just standing in their living room.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard that quite a bit. I have heard knocking before. So in one of the offices I worked at, there was a closet that we kept urns in, waiting for family to come pick them up. It's one of those old metal closets, with the door handle that does this, and because they need to lock. And I'm sitting there at work and it's quiet. Okay, one might even say dead silent. And all of a sudden I hear this knocking, and it's a sound of knocking on metal, and kind of sounds like tapping too. And I'm like, "Is someone at the door?" It's me and one other colleague. Nobody else was in there. And all of a sudden, I hear sliding. An urn was moving on the shelf inside of a locked closet. I opened it up. I didn't see anything move, but there was an urn that had gone to the middle of the shelf. So now I'm thinking maybe it's uneven. Okay, I believe in the paranormal, but I'm not just going to jump to it. So I just, whatever. I was like, it's where it wants to be, I guess. So I shut the door again. I hear knocking again, coming from the inside of the urn cabinet. Okay. I have heard most recently gurney wheels. I was working late one night. Everybody else had gone home. Okay. So naturally all the lights are out in the funeral home. It's just me working away. I got my bag and I shut the door behind me, locked my office, and I'm walking out and there's this doorway just outside that like leads to the parking lot. It's a tiny, narrow hallway. Not enough space for a gurney. There's no reason for a gurney to be back there. Okay. That's not the morgue. This is like the administration hallway. I hear the squeaking of like gurney wheels, probably for like about 5 seconds, which felt like an eternity. And even doing this as long as I've been doing it, I was so scared. I was just like, okay, so I just took a moment and I breathed and I was like, I'm going home. And so I went out the other way. I don't know who it was.
Have you come up with a plan of like what you would do if it is a ghost? I mean, like you're around death.
Uh-huh.
You know it's final.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're hearing that, I have to believe you.
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
Mm-hmm.
And B, what would you do to become friends with it?
Yeah.
Or make peace with it?
I have, and those are just a few of the encounters. I've encountered a lot where, I think I see someone turn a corner. I like will watch someone like go around the corner and I go over there. There's nobody over there. So a lot of things like that. And on times where I've ever felt scared, I just kind of, I'm like, hey, we have the same goal, okay? And it's for you to not be here anymore. Or like, I'm just here to do a job. Your family's lovely. I don't know who it is. I don't know who it is unless it's something specific. But I kind of introduce myself sometimes. My name's Megan. Nice to meet you. I'm just here to do a job. Let me do what I need to do. And you can do what you need to do. And we're cool. And, then I'll back away slowly. Yeah, I've never felt like threatened. I have heard a lot of like talking before. There was one time I was in our prep room and I was filling urns, which is a tedious process, but I really enjoy it. I'll like play music. Usually if I know, like if I'm filling an urn and I know like, okay, this person that passed away loved mariachi music, I will play mariachi music while I fill their urn or something like that. And so I was doing that and we had a few caskets in that room as well because there were funeral services later that day. So the bodies were fully prepared, fully embalmed, locked caskets, just in the room with me while I'm doing my thing. And I've heard talking before. I've heard like a male voice talking, just at like a very low thing, kind of like this, no big inflections on a voice, but just talking. I didn't even know what they were saying, but I stopped and I was like, hello? Nothing. It stopped immediately. And I opened up the door and I looked in the hallway. Nobody's in the hallway. Nobody's around me. I was just like, okay. So when I came back in, I was like, I'm going to finish filling this urn. Your service is tomorrow. So you'll have your time tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you watch scary movies?
I love scary movies. Love them.
Yeah. Do they scare you though?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sometimes they do. There's one scary movie in particular that like really gets me because so many of them are based in a morgue classic, right? I love it. But The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
I was just going to ask if you've seen that one.
That one always scares me because how scary would that be? Okay. We don't put bells on their feet, but if I heard a bell in the hallway at work, you might as well put me on a gurney because I'm going to drop.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Cabinet of Curiosities episode that's really good too, where someone have you seen
through
that
the
one?
grave. Yeah, that's the is that the grave robbing one with the rats?
No,
the Guillermo del Toro.
This episode was something like where the guy he's going to do an autopsy and there's like this alien or being in him,
I
and
think I remember that one.
and then he like cut his eyes out
Yeah.
and everything, and the being was stuck in him, and
Yeah.
it ended with him.
I remember that, and it's coming back to me like a dream that I had,
Yeah.
truthfully. Yeah, anything funeral home related, it already, like, I'm already ready to go. It always makes it a little bit scarier, but what takes me out of it is when it's so wrong.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you didn't even consult with a mortician on this. You just, like, guessed. All right. Yeah.
Why do you think that you like the scary movies about your job? If you've had the encounters that scare the shit out of you, and then you're going home to watch this in your
Yeah.
free time.
That is a great question that maybe I should see a therapist about. Honestly, I'm not sure. I know part of why I like scary movies is because I'm a person with a lot of anxiety, and being around death and hearing about a lot of like accidents and you know the worst things that can happen to somebody, even seeing like the result of horrific accidents or the result of somebody's, you know, hatred and murder and things like that. Like, that's not super great for an anxious person like myself, but watching scary movies provides a resolution for me. Even if it's, you know, an hour and a half of something ridiculous, there is a resolution at the end. There is safety at the end. The credits roll and everybody's happy, and that provides me with a sense of resolution. And I think the funeral home one specifically, part of me maybe is thinking because if the worst case scenario can happen for that person and they get to the end okay, I will be okay if that happens to me. You know, maybe it's like I'm preparing for something. I don't know.
Or maybe it is like a form of therapy where
Yeah.
you're living through the person going through.
Yeah.
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 That is very interesting that you like that. But hey, anybody that does your job, hats
Yeah.
off to them, because it's got to be rough.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the emotional toll of it? Does it bother you? Like, do you take it? You said that you take it home, but like, you have to see like some people at their worst in the bad situation, like murders and
Yeah.
maybe even like
Yeah.
babies. How do you compartmentalize that and deal with it?
Honestly, yeah, it's a lot of compartmentalizing of I'll put this away when I can deal with it. Um, I think I process it by helping the family. When I'm done with a funeral service or when I release ashes back to the family, to me that feels like, you know, I can let this go. I'm able to do that with some things. You know, when we release ashes back to a family, we try and make a little ceremony of it. Nothing, you know, nothing extravagant, but we'll have candles and we'll have a private room. And part of me that is healing any sort of pain that I latched onto during the arrangement process. But with really sensitive things like children, babies, or like homicides, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know how to deal with them. They're still with me right now. I can think of the worst case I've ever seen right now. Tell you every detail of it. Tell you exactly what the bodies looked like. Tell you exactly what the room looked like that they were in. I can recall the pain in the next of kin's voice when I talk to them, and that stays with me a lot. It's been years. Also, it's been 5 years, and I can still tell you everything about it. I don't know. I'll let you know when I figure it out. But I definitely do heal parts of myself um, when I talk to families. Um, yeah, I will. There's this thing in the industry called compassion fatigue, and it is when you just give so much of yourself to your families that you're left with nothing. That happens a lot. It's like our equivalent of burnout, but because I mean, on a busy day, I could have maybe 4 arrangements in one day. I'm sitting down with 4 different people on the worst days of their life, hearing sometimes for an hour and a half about their loved one, about what happened. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes they're making jokes. Sometimes they're angry and they're screaming at me for the hour and a half because the hospital did something or something happened with family drama, but I'm still their target. And that just builds up, builds up, builds up. And at the end of the day, I just clock out. And I'll go home and maybe I'll squeeze my cats a little extra hard that day, or maybe I'll watch a scary movie and like kind of release some of that with it. Or sometimes I just hold on to it till the next day when I'm talking with a family and I go back to my desk and I just cry a lot.
Do you think that they should mandate some type of therapy for people in your industry?
I think that that would be great. Most funeral homes will offer, this is an employee, counseling line. Have I ever used it, or do I know people that have used it? No.
Yeah.
It's a resource that's available, but it's so normalized. This is a part of the job. And people will say that too. You know what you're getting yourself into. And sure, yeah, I know what I was getting myself into. Does it make it, easier when I'm sitting with somebody who just had to witness their child get hit by a car?
Mhm.
No. When they're crying in my arms and looking at me and begging, how could this have happened? I'm not thinking, I chose to do this. I'm thinking, how can I make this even a touch easier for the person in front of me to get on with the rest of their day? That's
How
it.
how did you get into this?
Um, I've always been really interested in it. Always. Part of me has always been drawn to it. And I saw a job listing for a receptionist position at a small funeral home here, and I was 18 at the time. And I was like, sure, I'll apply. I've been a barista. I'd worked at like a museum. I worked at the I worked at the Zach Bagans Haunted Museum. So I I had already had some sort of like relationship professionally with death and spooky things. And so I was like, let's do this, They hired me and I fell in love with it. When I was a receptionist, then I was like, how can I be on the removal team? I want to be there. I want to be there with the decedents. So during the day, I was 9 to 5 as a receptionist for this funeral home. And then from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., I was on call for body removals. So sometimes I would be working for 3 days straight. I would go into someone's home, receive their loved one, bring them into our care. And then 5 hours later, that family was walking into my office and I was just like, hello again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I loved it. I really did. I thought, this is something that I'm really good at. I believe I have all the emotional tools for this. And I want to do more.
And that's how you got into it.
Yeah. I studied after that. I was like, COVID happened. COVID changed everything with a funeral home.
How
And
so?
well, funerals weren't a thing anymore. You can't gather for all these people. So funeral homes were offering things like drive-by funerals. Yeah, where they basically open up the doors and the loved ones presented in the casket and people drive by, paying their respects. Virtual funerals. Some funeral homes were saying no gatherings at all, only direct cremations or direct burials. On my end for removals, it was so crazy because in the beginning part, nobody could tell us how COVID was transmitted after death, if COVID could be transmitted after death. So in the very beginning stages of it, when the world is just starting to lock down and starting to freak out about this, I would arrive on scene. It's 3 a.m. It's pouring rain. I'm at the bottom stairs of this long apartment staircase, right? And we leave the gurney at the bottom. We go upstairs and the nurse will casually say, hey, he had COVID, so just wash your clothes when you're done. That's what we knew at the time. They weren't really telling us these things. And honestly, like, all of the attention, and rightfully so, okay, I'm not trying to say anything against the medical field, but all of the attention was on the hospitals. The restraints that they were feeling, the hardship that they were feeling, the lack of, ICU, ER space, all those things. Nobody's really thinking about the funeral homes too, because they're acknowledging this large death toll, but not acknowledging who takes care of that death toll. So funeral homes were required to get additional refrigeration trailers. So some funeral homes would have these huge trailers in their parking lots. Those were to store people that passed away. It was a lot of long hours, a lot of things that came into it. There were a lot of people that would call and say, he didn't have COVID. Don't you dare put COVID on his death certificate. And then once FEMA started rolling out, payment, financial assistance for those who passed away from COVID, suddenly we're getting inundated with, he had COVID before he passed. Make sure you put COVID on his death certificate. And we're just over here like doing our best. It was a lot. It was scary, and still nobody was telling us really about the bodies. Sure, if you embalm somebody, technically, that's a way to preserve and also a way to like clean them, but we still don't know. Fortunately, our morgues and the practices that we take, we treat every single person in our care as if they have an incredibly dangerous disease. But when someone has an incredibly dangerous disease, you still have to take additional steps. There's biosealing of caskets, which is where it's like there's no way there's like a special like sealer, a special body bag that's used. Like when someone has Creutzfeldt-Jakob's, for example, that's like mad cow disease for human. It's one of the rarest and most insane diseases I've ever heard of. I've encountered it a few times. And every time I'm almost scared to touch the casket, it's one of those things. So when COVID was happening, it was, we were treating it at that level. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rough time.
Yeah.
You couldn't see people that were in the hospital or if they passed away.
Yeah. And it was hard. I was denying families this basic human right to say goodbye to their loved one. I had to deny that because of what, the state, the laws, the CDC was requiring. And it was, there was a lot of pushback for it. And I understand that. I really do. My biggest goal in life is to make sure that you say goodbye to your loved one and you honor them in the way you want. And COVID took that away from hundreds, thousands of families, and we're just doing the best that we can. Like I want to give that to you, but I can't.
Yeah. There was a lot of things that were just made sense at the time, and then a lot of things that didn't make sense at the time that were pretty wacky.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a parallel between people that work in the funeral industry and, say, someone that's a serial killer or a murderer?
I mean, that is a really great question. I I think the main thing that does separate them, at least what I can say that separates them, is the reason for wanting to be around death. I think there's a lot of people that want to cause it, and they have this weird fascination with touching dead people. So, I mean, there's been a few serial killers that have worked in mortuaries before, even here in town in Vegas.
Really?
Yeah, John Wayne Gacy.
Oh, he worked it?
Yes. He, for very briefly, like back in like the 50s, 60s, worked at Palm Mortuary downtown. Yeah. He worked there for a while. He was part of the people receiving bodies and doing all of that because his uncle worked at the funeral home and he wanted to be around them. He wanted to touch the deceased. There's definitely something like that in people. I hope that I've never crossed paths with a psychopath. But I could definitely see somebody that has that desire to be around death in a way that isn't respectful, using a mortuary as an excuse to do that.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that about Gacy.
Yeah, actually, I found that out recently too. And I was like, really? Wow, that's crazy.
If it's an issue, I will take that company's name out
Well,
respectfully. Or do they?
they know that.
Okay.
Yeah, so they know that. I mean, if you want to, you can take it out, but there has been a few like articles and things that have come out. Like I think the Review Journal even made a post about it too. So it's not like a secret. I found out about it online and I was like, you're fucking with me. And I looked into it and no, it's real. It was before the current owners were here. And of course that was before he was Pogo the Clown or whatever crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think there's something like that in both parties. A desire to be around death, but for different drives, I think, for sure. I mean, I've even encountered some people where I'm like, Like, let me tell you, when I was on the dating scene, putting that I was working at a funeral home on my bio invited some freaks. Okay, it's hard. Dating in Vegas is already really hard to do. Okay. But then I would have people messaging me like, "Do you actually get to touch the dead people?" And I would answer, you know, accurately and respectfully, and I'd be like, "Yes, it is my job to care for dead people." And they're like, "That's so hot." And I'm like, "Oh, don't say that. Please don't say that." Or they'd be like, "Do you ever see any sexy bodies?" And I'm like, "No, because they're dead. A dead body can't be sexy. Sorry. They're dead."
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. So maybe they haven't killed people, but some people definitely want to get close to the funeral home industry because of whatever else is driving them, whether it's like a bloodlust or just lust in general.
That's necrophilia, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
A sexy dead body.
Yeah.
What would that be?
I don't know. Maybe they're assuming somebody that is attractive in life passes away. And I think those people have these, and there's even been, oh my gosh, we talked about TV shows that have these things. There's an American Horror Stories episode, their anthology series about a mortician. And 'cause someone told me to watch it. And they're like, "It's based in a funeral home. You'll love it." And I was like, okay. And I watched it. And the plot of it is this mortician who meets a guy, hits it off. She like has feelings for him. He dies. He comes to her morgue and she has her time with him, okay? And then she's like racked with guilt and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. My vow was to protect these people." And then it turns out, spoilers, he wasn't actually dead. He was faking being dead and was like, "You're a sick person too. We belong together." And I'm just watching it. I'm like, why would you tell me to watch this? It's horrible.
Yeah. I'd be thinking, what is this shit?
Exactly. Halfway through, I was like, did Ryan Murphy write this? Because he sucks. Anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of people that have really horrible intentions that want to get close to a funeral home just to fulfill those horrible intentions.
What do you think that is? Do you think it's because someone wants total control over someone, like a domination?
Yeah, I think it could be. I think some people, especially like the really sick people, like John Wayne Gacy, I think that they have, like, they know how wrong it is. And I think they like that they know it's wrong. There's a lot of people where they don't even want to step foot in a funeral home. I have some people that want to do a phone appointment because the thought of them even entering the building is just wrong. Or like when I tell families, our crematory's on site. And I'll say, yeah, our care center's on site as well. And they have that realization that they're in a building with, hundreds of bodies and only a small percentage of those have a heartbeat. And they freak out and you can see it kind of set on them. And I think that feeling that people get when they realize that they're around death or that they're, in a space that holds so much death, I feel like that same feeling that pushes people away and scares people is what really like sick people really thrive on. I think like the wires maybe crossed in their brain or whatever, where that like pain in some people and fear is like a drug to other people where they're like, yeah, like I want to be by those dead people. I want to touch them. I want to do all these things. And I'm like, please don't. Please don't.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's scary to think about.
You said that, thankfully. Am I right that you haven't come across anything or anybody that you've worked with that was like that? Have you ever, let me rephrase that too.
Sure.
Have you ever worked with someone where you're like, maybe you're a little off?
I mean, not that I've directly encountered. I've heard of people, like I heard of someone that knew someone, I heard a rumor, not any funeral home I worked with, but someone that I worked with had worked with somebody that got fired because they snuck their partner into like the prep room where they embalm people and they had intercourse on the embalming table. I've heard that. And maybe it's a rumor. I don't know. It did not happen. I didn't see it. I haven't directly heard of it. It was from another person, but I've heard stories like that. or someone sneaking off with somebody in like the removal van on a gurney. And I'm like, why would you want to do that? First of all, ew. Okay. Secondly, why would you want to do that? So I've heard things like that. I have not directly encountered anybody. I've been very fortunate that the mortuaries that I have worked for have all been respect for the deceased above all else. You know, one of the managers that I worked for, he was very, very strict on you do not talk bad about the decedent. There was a woman that had come into our care that was just over 500 pounds. And that's not unusual, you know? And someone in the care center had looked and said, like, oh, like, look at this whale. And he was fired on the spot. On the spot, fired. Get out. You know? And that is the mindset of the mortuaries that I've worked in. And if I've even heard somebody, you know, maybe this isn't their passion, maybe this is a side job for them or whatever, and they speak any sort of way about a decedent, even if it's not inherently disrespectful towards them, I've always said something because it's wrong. You don't half-ass this job, you know? This is your whole ass in this job. You put your all into it. And I have never encountered anything wrong towards decedents.
Yeah, and like I said before, the people laying there really can't fight back
No.
or say anything
Yeah.
to defend themselves. So
Yeah. They're
that's a really awesome thing
oh,
to have that
yeah.
that integrity,
Yeah.
I guess. What do you think people get wrong about death?
How so?
Like just how they are, like their mindset of like they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to be around it.
mm,
What do you think, like how could they change their feelings about it?
I think so. One thing for me, and I'm a very optimistic person, I see all of this, the arrangements, the funeral, the cemetery, the burial, all of it. I see it as the biggest act of love that someone could give, the biggest departure. Some people are scared to enter cemeteries, you know. I see it as one of the most beautiful and heartfelt places in the world because how, like, you love someone so much and you miss them so much that you dedicate a piece of the earth to them forever. How is that not beautiful? You know, same with cremation. You reduce someone down to the basics, you know, this like the basics. You know, it's that one is it Carl Sagan, the quote, we're all made of star stuff, or you
Yeah.
know, that's what we are. And to cremate somebody and to keep them with you or to scatter them and all around the world like what people do, how could that not be beautiful? Of course it's sad, of course it's painful, and people don't want to think about it, but you have to think about it. At some point, you have to face death, whether it's your loved one, whether it's a pet, whether it's your own death, someone getting a terminal diagnosis. You're going to have to face death at some point. And how you react to it is only going to, you know, is only going to set the tone for how long this relationship with death lasts. So there are some people that are very comfortable with it, where they want to take care of their arrangements beforehand, or maybe they're like, you know, they're at peace now. And that sets your grieving journey on the right path. People that refuse to think about death, it makes the whole acceptance process even harder. And I think that in some cases where, you know, maybe there are spirits left behind or energy of someone that passed away, I think that that happens because maybe the person couldn't accept death, or maybe their loved ones can't accept death. They're so set on the fact that there's no way this could happen that their loved ones stay behind until they can process it. You know, I think that people need to at least come to terms that at some point they're going to have to face it head on. And there are people, there are resources, you know, like my entire job is to make death as easy as possible for people and the whole process as easy as possible. And if you're not willing to look death right in the eyes, you know, it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah. Literally
Yeah.
gonna catch up to you. I mean, we're all destined for that.
Yeah.
I think it's really great what you do, and not a lot of people can do it. Um, I just want to say thanks a lot for doing this. This has been really an interesting conversation, and I'm glad you're out there.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm happy to be doing it. I'm going to do this for as long as I can. Yeah.
Thanks for watching Untitled Interview. If you liked the conversation you just watched, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're interested, there's lots more just like that right here.